You let me what?
I'll let you know.
Ankin Ma'at, welcome to Kemetic Ascension, brought to you by the Shrine of Ma'at. We want to welcome you to Kemetic Ascension for November 22nd, 2020. I know that 2020 has been a really rough year, so by now we should almost be in June of 2021 as long as this is taking. I want to thank you for coming forward and spending a good portion of your Sunday with us. I know that there are many other things that you could do. And I'm so honored that you've chosen to spend some time with us as we speak about, talk about, pray about that ancestral legacy that comes from our divine classical civilization of Kemet. I'm so pleased that you've come to join us. I'm so honored that you're here with us. And I know that today we will galvanize those energies that you can put to work in your life. Before we continue, we need to know where you are. Because in this particular phase of the year that we're in, we are standing here speaking to a camera. At least Anika is able to see you chatting, but I'm talking to a camera. So please, let us know that you hear us. Let us know that our divine energy is reaching you and you are sending divine energy back. We want you to tell us where you are and how long you have been partaking in being part of Kemetic Ascension. So tell us where you are and tell us how long you have been partaking in Kemetic Ascension.
We have Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Wonderful.
And Sinette Cheryl Lee from the DMV. Thank you so much for your donation, by the way.
Go ahead, Sinette Cheryl.
You gave a generous donation this morning.
A full member of the Shrine of Ma'at. Tuahu, tuahu, tuahu. It's good to at least know that you're out there, even though we haven't seen each other in some time.
She's been in my class. So.
This too will pass. Oh, so you've gotten a chance to see her. Okay. I have not gotten a chance to see the beloved Sinette Cheryl, who we mirror so dearly.
We have our Hemsanu in the house, Jehuti Mess, shouting out from Harlem.
Go ahead, Jehuti Mess. He's only a few blocks from here, but the pandemic sucks, so we have not seen him very much recently.
Sinette Adrian is in the house.
Sinette Adrian, a member of the initiate class of the Shrine of Ma'at, known as Rakas Seshen.
Let's see. Jehuti Mess said 2020 has been the worst 5 years of his life. Twa'u for donations from Dion and from Nicole. We just got them in.
Wonderful,
we appreciate
wonderful.
You. We have Dallas again. So, okay, Dallas and Austin, Texas. Texas in the house.
Texas
today.
is in the house heavy today, huh?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Let's see who else. Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Let's see. Queens, New York.
Woo! Who's in Queens, New York?
D. Marcus Morgan.
Okay. D. Marcus Morgan. I'm from Queens.
Sinette Oye from Rochester in Philly.
In Philly. Philly in the house.
Yes. We have Columbus, Ohio. We have the Dominican Republic.
Have we sent the Dominican Republic before?
Maybe once.
Welcome from the DR. It's wonderful, wonderful that you are here.
Sinette Nikki from Hartford, Connecticut, Rakash Hashem.
Go ahead, Sinette Nikki.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
North Carolina, Delaware.
Morocco, that's Sister Charity. So that's
Morocco. Oh, she's in Morocco right now. I know she was heading to Morocco. Wonderful. It is wonderful to hear you've arrived safely.
Let's say Lower East Side, New York City.
Who's on the Lower East Side?
Mars Goodman.
Oh, LES, huh?
Quebec, Canada.
Quebec, Canada. Go ahead.
Got South Jersey in the house.
South Jersey.
Boots the Shot from Hartford.
And Boots the Shot is on there. One of the priestesses of the Shrine of Ma'at. One of the leaders of the Shrine of Ma'at. It's wonderful to know that you're out there.
Twa'u Onje for your donation. I hope I'm saying your name right. I apologize.
I don't think it's... Is it Onjay? It's Onjai.
Onjay.
Onjai?
I'm not sure. If you could write it out phonetically,
Yeah, I think
I'll
it's
say it
Onjai.
correctly. I apologize in advance. Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Yes, we're here. Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Is that the second Dominican Republic, or is that the same person from Dominican
I
Republic?
believe it's the second.
What's going on in Dominican Republic today? Uh-oh! Sounds like we need to take a trip.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Wow.
South Africa.
South Africa in the
This
house.
is a familiar person. Lesego Sangfang.
Wonderful.
We have New Zealand. I believe we recognize that name as
New
well.
Zealand.
Jehuti Mess says Jabari Nika have been instrumental in my life since I was 15. I think he has a new spot he mentioned earlier.
A new spot?
We still have to reach out to you, Jehuti Mess.
What do you mean a new spot?
Within Harlem.
Spot to hang out
I
in?
think he's moved.
Or to live? You live in someplace else? What?
Gotta follow up with him.
Need to come sit on your couch and have some cornbread.
We have Lighthouse in the house.
The lighthouse in the house.
Yeah.
Who is it from the lighthouse?
Tashi Mart. He was originally from New York Lighthouse and is now in Charlotte.
Wonderful. It is wonderful to see you.
Queens.
It's wonderful that you're there. More Queens, New York?
East Elmhurst.
East Elmhurst. Go ahead.
Silver Springs, Maryland.
Wow.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. The ATL Hot Atlanta in the house.
Washington, D.C. We
Wonderful.
have London, UK.
London. Across the pond.
Let's see, Savannah, Georgia. It's on J. So.
It's Onjay?
Yes.
Okay, so you were saying it right. Onjay.
Great.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Oh.
And peace to your family, Onjay. I think you were mentioning that you were going to watch the DVDs with your daughter. Peace to the family.
And I see that we have a question for you already. Where do you get your clothes? And do they have a website?
Actually, we have several folks that make our clothes. This one is made by a brother named Ali from Ali Fashion here on 116th Street. We'll let you know a little bit more later.
Yeah, unfortunately, he doesn't have a website, but you would have to be in New York to go to his booth.
Right.
116th between 5th and Malcolm X Boulevard.
Mm-hmm. He's in the Mart, that the Malcolm Shabazz Mart.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably the person that makes most of our clothes these days.
We have Lithonia, Georgia.
Lithonia, Georgia. That sounds familiar. Who's that?
Jehuti says he's still in Harlem, but yes, you could come and have some cornbread on his couch. Lithonia, Georgia is Tanya Smiley.
Tanya Smiley, that's right.
Yes. East Louisville, Illinois, and who's currently in Lincoln, Nebraska. Twa'u, Adrian, for your donation.
Twa'u.
Lighthouse member Coben, Taekwon, Flint, Michigan, currently in Las Vegas.
Ah.
Let's see. More Cleveland, Ohio folks.
Go ahead, Cleveland.
And yes, Onjay said the cartoon DVD was eye-opening. They watched My Little Pony.
You watched it before?
No, his children watch My Little Pony.
And so now they've talked about My Little Pony.
Yes.
I talked about My Little Pony in my presentation.
Yes, okay, we have family in St. Croix, Virgin Islands.
Wonderful. Who's in St. Croix?
Yes. King ruler Spain.
Wow. That means that you must be relatively near the priestess Dr. Chenzira. So hopefully you can connect with her. And also that must mean you're close to a member of Rakasa Shen, right?
Yes.
She's in St. Croix, isn't she?
Yes, Adenike.
Adenike, yes, Annette Adenike is in St. Croix, that's right.
More lighthouse representation in the house, Derek Grant.
Wonderful.
We have devoted watchers from West London, UK, Yolanda and Robert.
Wow, go ahead.
We have Sinette Fafanta, Hyattsville, Maryland.
Levanta Tracy, good to see you. Anka Ma'at, a member of the Shrine of Ma'at.
That's right, let's see. Oh, We have San Diego in the house. We have
Go
Phoenix,
ahead.
Arizona. Send to Hootie forever. Let's see.
Sent to you to have forever, also known as Brother William Humphrey.
Yes. We have Tampa, Florida in the house.
Yeah,
Our
that's
YouTube
wonderful.
family. New Jersey in the house. Infinite Minds.
Jersey.
Met you at the HOK reunion.
Yes, Infinite Minds. Yes, absolutely.
Nicola Taylor, Las Vegas.
Folks from all over, huh?
Desert Hot Springs, California.
Wow.
And Abu Ka is in the house.
Abu Ka out of Philly.
Ma'at, Philly in the
The
house.
city of brotherly love. Go ahead. One of the leaders of the Shrine of Ma'at, you will hear us mention those folks who are part of the Wenwet. Abu Ka is an important member of the Wenwet. Ka'ani and Bess,
Yes.
affectionately known as Abu Ka.
I think those are all the shout outs right now.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I want to say that it is heartening to hear that we are able to reach you where you are, because we know that this particular period has been challenging our social connections. We are in the middle of a pandemic whose remedy is to stay away from people. So we know that this has been challenging for so many people, and particularly challenging for those of you who are part of the African community, because our social bonds are of critical importance to us. And so I know that this has been hard. I will say to you, it is even difficult for me to speak to you in essentially an empty room with Anika. It is difficult. I would much rather see many of you and speak to many of you and be able to give you our Kemetic greeting. But we know that this is a time that we should actually do things from a distance. And that if we remain focused, if we remain steadfast, if we focus our vision on Ma'at, this too will pass. And so I am so pleased that you've let us know where you are. That is so amazing. I am so pleased that you have chosen to spend a good portion of your Sunday with us for Kemetic Ascension. So let me go ahead and welcome you again. Ankin Ma'at to Kliko, a member of the Hemsanu.
Oh, and Corey is in the house.
Ah, Corey. I haven't seen Corey in a while. And you know, Corey is one of those other folks that lives with his beautiful wife and his children in Harlem. We used to see each other quite frequently. The pandemic has been hard. Please give love to your queen. Please give love to your boys. Please give love to your entire family, your mothers, everybody, please. Because we haven't seen you and we definitely miss you.
Uncle Ma'at to the Netherlands.
The Netherlands. Go ahead.
Wow.
So you can see that we are able to reach people all over the world. Because we know that the sound of the voices of your African ancestors pierces international borderlines, pierces the waters, pierces the skies. We know that you hear that voice because we do too. And it ain't just in Harlem. So it's amazing that you have chosen to join us. It's amazing that you've chosen to commune together. I have often said that if you are one of those individuals that is practicing ancient African traditions, that is practicing traditions that are different than the three largest traditions today of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, generally this means that you often do things on your own, that you have to follow your own pace, do your own things, practice the way that you practice often on your own. But something amazing happens when we come together and we worship and we pray and we Hessie and we spend time together. It is important for us to gather, even if it's on the internet. And so we salute you and we salute the divine in you for joining us for Kemetic Ascension. So you should know that when we begin Kemetic Ascension, we begin Kemetic Ascension in the manner that was instructed by our sacred elder, Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samaj Se Pata. He is the one that put this ritual, this ceremony, this practice, these movements, these divine meditations into its current form by looking at some of the most important symbols, some of the most important images, some of the most important concepts of ancient Kemet. And so we do what we call the opening of the way. You have heard me say that the opening of the way should be done whenever you are about to embark on something important. And definitely your day is important. So we ask for you to stand and join us. Remember, this is not public theater. This is ritual. So please stand in the position of adoration. You're going to stand upright with your left foot forward like you're taking a short stride. And then you are going to place both of your hands upwards with the palms exposed. Have the left hand be a little further forward than the right hand. And you might even choose to have the left hand a little bit higher than the right hand. This is a position that has been called by our ancestors the position of adoration. And with your palms exposed, you are going to give and receive divine energy from all of those divine beings around you. And so please stand in this position. And we're going to begin by chanting the word of divine everlasting life, Ankh. Take your breath and breathe from your diaphragm. Don't breathe from up here. This is how you breathe when you are racked with terror, when you are nervous, when you are rushing. Go further below to that divine pit below your stomach. Let's do it together, family.
Anetrak in bedhet.
Anetrak in bedhet.
Nuke in bedhet.
Nuke in bedhet. Anetrak hapi.
Anetrak hapi.
Nuke hapi.
Nuke hapi.
Twa winter.
Twa winter.
Turn to your right.
Anetrak serket.
Anetrak serket.
Nuke serket.
Nuke serket. Anetrak kebsenuf.
Anetrak kepsenuf.
Nuke kebsenuf.
Nuke kepsenuf.
Twa inter.
Twa winter.
Turn to your right.
Anetrak ast.
Anetrak ast.
Nuke ast.
Nuke ast. Anetrak amset.
Anetrak amset.
Nuke amset.
Nuke amset.
Twa inter.
Twa winter. Anetrak neat.
Anetrak neat.
Nuke neat.
Nuke neat. Anetrak dwamutef.
Anetrak dwamutef.
Nuke dwamutef.
Nuke dwamutef.
Twa winter.
Twa winter. Anetrak newt.
Anetrak newt.
Nuke newt.
Nuke newt. Anetrak geb.
Anetrak geb.
Nuke geb.
Nuke geb.
Twa winter.
Twa winter.
Anetrak shoe.
Anetrak shoe.
Shoe. Shoe. Shoe. Shoe. Nuke shoe.
Anetrak tefnut.
Anetrak tefnut.
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 Nuke tefnut.
Nuke tefnut.
Twa winter.
Twa winter. Anetrak paut in teru. Nuke paut in teru. Anetrak and boo in teru. Nuke and boo in teru. Twa winter. Dwa winter. Dwa, dwa, dwa to you. Dwa to you. We are hoping that you are doing the opening of the way with us. This is not theater. You ain't at Magic Johnson. This is not Lowe's. This is divine ritual. Please, when we do ritual, we should do it together. Because when we all actually call those divine names, when we all focus on divine energies together, something special happens. You are a divine entity imbued with divine power. And if you and other divine entities focus on the same vibration, it will change the very motion of the planets. And so we hope that you are doing the opening of the way with us. And remember, you should do the opening of the way before you do anything important. And certainly, your week, your day, every time you draw breath is important. At the very least, do the opening of the way when you start your day, so that you can remember just how powerful, how impactful, how dynamic you are. If you remember the stuff you are made of, if you remember your wonderful sacred capabilities, you will be able to do anything. And all of those things that continue to beset you, all of those things that continue to trouble you, all of those things that continue to get in your way will be shoved, will be pushed, will be jettisoned out of your way. Because you are a divine entity. Remember that you are. You have heard me say, our quest is to have you remember that which you have always known, so you can do the things that you've always done and be who the Neteru and the divine assemblage of ancestors know you to be. So I want you to remember that you must do the opening of the way. When you do the opening of the way, miraculous things will come into your presence. You'll be able to actually contend with those things that you might be struggling with, because you'll recognize that you are stronger than it. Please do the opening of the way. And I know that somebody is saying right now, Jabari, how do I learn how to do the opening of the way? Is that what someone said?
No, they want to know if they were supposed to start in the east. And I mentioned that Baba Haru starts in the east, but the Shrine of Ma'at starts in the north.
So, for those of you who are trying to learn the opening of the way, remember, one of the benefits of doing these sessions online is that there is a record created, a visual record, a recording in YouTube and Facebook. And so you can go back and look at those that we have done. In fact, if you search opening of the way in YouTube, you are going to see that Anika and I, for our television show, Comedic Legacy Today, did the opening of the way.
The way Baba did it.
In the manner in which Baba did it. And we also spoke those words in the way that we have been doing for many years. And we even showed you some of the images of the divine in that session.
We have a question.
So please get used to the opening of the way. The question, okay, yes, what was the question?
Why start at the north?
Okay. Now, you should know that the Shrine of Ma'at does things a little bit differently than our elder Baba Haru. We actually have been doing it both ways, actually. We have the way of our elder to do it in the east, because he is saying that we are putting our face towards the rising sun. Is Hapi. Well, first is in Bedhet and Hapi. But Hapi is the deity of the north. And so we do it in two different ways. I hope you understand that we believe that you should do it in either way, but when we do it as a shrine, we do it facing north. But we also learn to do it facing east, so that when our elder is present, we recognize his journey, we recognize his struggle, we recognize that he put this particular tradition, this magnificent ceremony, into its original form. And so that is what we do. But we also focus on the north because Hapi is the deity of the north. And we believe that if you face north while you're calling the name of Hapi, that Hapi will be manifest in a different power. That's the reason why we do it north. Is that a good answer?
Yes, and we
Hopefully it
probably
is.
will have to switch again because of the direction of the other.
There are other things that we'll have to tweak.
Mm-hmm.
There are other things that we will have to tweak as a shrine. Certainly. Do we have any other questions, comments before we shift?
No.
Let me go ahead and say that at this point in Comedic Ascension, we go into Hessie. Hessie is when we put our voices, our divine intention together in harmonious acclamation. Maybe you can consider this the world's first gospel music. Maybe you should consider this divine affirmations from the deepest, darkest heart of Africa. That is the way that you should see Hessie. And I'm going to say to you that your African ancestors have been doing Hessie long before anyone else of note, of record, was doing Hessie. And now today, people recognize that affirmations are powerful. I remember just a few years ago, a number of primarily Western practitioners began to talk about the secret. That you should actually set your intentions and you should actually think and say those things that you want to bring into the world. Well, your ancestors actually were doing this long before the written word, long before there were names for the other places on the planet. And they wrote them down and said, this is what you should do. And so we ask that you follow us, that you join us in Hessie. Keep in mind that we tend to Hessie in the original language of the Untu-Unter or the Metu-Neter, or the Medu-Netcher, sometimes called as well. And this is because we try to use the language of our African Kemetic Nubian ancestors as much as we can, but you can Hessie in any language you like. This is setting divine intention, and this is important. So, please join us in Hessie. Anika, we have a Hessie today. It's one that Anika has put together, you should know. And I think that it probably should be called Wesebiash. Right? Is that fair?
Yeah. Answer the call.
So you should know that essentially what we are doing is we are pleading to those divine entities, those indwelling and outdwelling forces that have built and maintained the structure of the universe. And so this particular Hessie that she has authored is called Wesebiash. And so let's run through the words, tell you what it means, and then we'll do it together. Does that make sense? Let's do it. So it sounds something like this. I see Anika is putting her head down. She's not trying to lead you in it. Look at her face.
I'm copying the words so I can put it on the page. Why are you...
She wrote it and she's sticking it to me and said, go ahead, run with it now. Run with it. Do you see what she just did? She looking down, look.
I am trying to...
Like she normally types like this.
You know, family, he is constantly teasing me.
This is
Y'all need to come get him, because he's always doing this to me.
She made it. And but you know what? Here's the deal. When we create Hessie, often we spend a lot of time trying to create it. But the first time we run it with you is a little harrying. Can we acknowledge that? That's the reason why both of us are like, Anika did it. And she went, uh-huh. She just said, uh-huh. She didn't say, family, this is how it goes. She said, uh-huh. The first time we do it, often, it's a little harrying. Because maybe we don't have the tune straight yet, right? The meter straight.
We miss our Hessie masters.
We miss our Hessie masters. But I should say to you that when we do Hessie, you should absolutely feel comfortable that we have imbued it with divine intention, that we have been thinking about the particular energy that we need to call forward, that we have been crafting things that perhaps you might be able to use in your life when you were actually focusing on doing a particular bit of work, when you're contending with something or building something. So, here is the Hessie. The words are Wesebiash, She keeps challenging me on that. I'm saying Wesheb Iash. I might not be saying it clearly. Wesheb Iash, Wesheb Iash, Wesheb Iash Makeru. And then you'll do it again. We'll do that 3 times. And then the words are Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra. Nukpu Me'at, Inter Ra. Interwa. And so then we'll go into the Wesheb Iash, Wesheb Iash. So why don't you tell us what this means, Anika?
Sure. Wesheb Yash means answer the call. Makeru is we're true of voice. So it's a shortened form for the purposes of Hessie.
Right.
And then Nukpu Heru, I am Heru. Amen Ra, the hidden one. Nukpu Ma'at, I am balance. Interwa, the divine one.
Are we going to do Interwa or Intersa?
You can
You like
interchange it if you
Interwa? Which one do you like?
Intersa is divine
You could do
protection.
divine Wa. We could do that.
Either divine one or divine protection. So
Which one do you prefer?
Wa is probably easier to say.
Okay. Okay. So do you get it, folks? You are calling yourself the hidden Heru. And I think that you are recognizing that you are a being imbued with infinite power. And that there are people around you who have been sleeping on you. There have been people around you that don't recognize your magnificence. There are those around you that would like to not see you in your fullest. And so this is where we come to Nukpu Heru Amen Ra. And then Nukpu Ma'at, that image of divine balance, of divine reciprocity. Interwa, the divine one. And then it's Wesheb Yash, answer the call, answer the call, answer the call. We are victorious. I hope you're with us. I hope you hear this Hessie the way that we hear the Hessie. Let us begin. And, you know, clearly one of the things that Jabari needs to do is he really does need to learn how to play the hand drum better. And, you know, I'm going to say to you, I am even more chastened to learn the hand drum better because I was just doing research, the research I do every day, and I saw all of these magnificent images of priests and priestesses and even the Netedru playing the hand drum on Kemetic papyri and also mostly on carved in temples. So that apparently this hand drum is something that our Kemetic ancestors used routinely. And I think that that is absolutely beautiful, particularly for that divine motherly goddess known as Het-Heru. And you know I don't like to use the word goddess, but I want some of you who don't know Ntert to know that that's a similar translation. Ntert. Okay? Let us go. You ready? Wesheb Yash Makeru. Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash Makeru. Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash Makeru. Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra. Nukpu Ma'at Interwa. Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra. Nukpu Ma'at Interwa. Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash Makeru. Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash Makeru. Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash, Wesheb Yash Makeru. Nukpu Heru.
Amen.
Did I skip one?
Yes, you did.
Interwa. Nukpu Heru. Amen Ra. Nukpu Ma'at. Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra, Nukpu Ma'at, Interwa. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra, Nukpu Ma'at, Interwa. Nukpu Heru, Aten Ra, Nukpu Heru, Interwa.
You are messing me up today.
How many times are we doing the Wesheviyash?
You tell me. You the one.
It's supposed to be 3 times, isn't it?
Okay, 3 times.
And then we're gonna do Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra twice.
Okay.
Yes?
As long as we're in accordance.
Was I doing it differently than that? The family at home will tell me that I probably am. Listen, sometimes you go with spirit, but the challenge is when you're going with spirit, somebody else's spirit might be telling them something different, right? That's the challenge. Here we go. Do it the way that works for you at home. Do it the way that works for you when you're walking somewhere. Do it the way that works for you when you need to pull together divine energy. So let's do it one more time. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra, Nukpu Ma'at, Interwa. Nukpu Heru, Amen Ra, Nukpu Ma'at, Interwa. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. Wesheviyash, 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 Makeru. I'm hoping that you are able to see how we've essentially crafted Hessie. And I'm hoping that you will feel comfortable taking license with it. I'm hoping that you will feel comfortable when there's a Hessie in your heart to have it come into existence. And by the way, if there's a Hessie you really love, you should tell us what it is. Send it to us. And maybe we'll do this together. It'd even be better if you sent us a video of you doing a Hessie so we know what tune you want, right? Don't just send us some words. Send us a video so we know the tune. And we really hope that you recognize that Hessie is a way that you can bring divine energy into your life. And when you bring divine energy into your life, there is nothing that you cannot do. There is no mountain that you cannot climb. There is no hurdle that you cannot surmount. There is no challenge that you cannot defeat. So please recognize how powerful you are and galvanize divine energy for your sacred work. With that, I'd like for us to go into the section of Kemetic Accession that we call a word from the Sebayit. Now, what is the Sebayit? Sebayit is generally usually considered the wisdom literature of ancient Kemet. It is the oldest body of literature in the world. It is the first body of literature that seeks to help us understand how to live, how to do, how to actually have Ma'at be the guiding principle in our lives so that we can live divine lives. Today, what I'd like to do is something a little bit different. We will definitely hear the words of our Kemetic ancestors, but because we actually are facing what is sometimes called the Thanksgiving holiday, I want us to think about, to talk about the holiday, and to think about thankfulness, to think about gratefulness, to think about gratitude. Definitely because you are speaking to a priest historian, I'm going to talk to you first about history. Because I want us to situate this holiday in its historical relevance. Sometimes it's important to understand why you do something or how it came to be. And then you can make the decision as to whether you are going to either continue to do it or whether you need to do something else. And I know that so many of you are going to be thinking and struggling with whether you should actually gather with family this year. This is so much different than other years. I know Anika and I have often thought that we were not going to go to our families for this holiday that many people call Thanksgiving, simply because of its challenged history. And so every year at around the beginning of November, we're like, oh boy, we got to do that again. Not because we have challenges with our family, we're actually both very close with our families, but because we want to celebrate them, but not necessarily celebrate all of what these days mean. In fact, as practitioners of Kemetic traditions, our celebrations are very different than those that the rest of the Western world and the rest of most people in the United States do. And so sometimes when we go, we feel a bit out of sorts. But I do want to say to you that I long made the commitment that whenever my family gathers, I would be there. Because with all of my challenges with Thanksgiving, with all of my challenges with this holiday, I still want to be with them because that will trump anything else. That wasn't always who I was. I remember when I was much younger in high school and really beginning to study African history and understand the context of being an African in the United States in the particular period that I was living in, I used to actually try to convince my family to do things other than Thanksgiving. And they simply laughed at me. My parents wanted to have turkey. They wanted to have family over. They wanted to pray and say what they were thankful for and do all those other things. And generally speaking, there's nothing wrong with what they wanted to do. But I also wanted them to recognize those native people who were annihilated, those Africans who were enslaved. So I remember one year, I had spent maybe a week creating a large diorama of an enslavement ship, complete with tiny Africans on it and with European enslavers with whips. This was not an easy thing to do without anyone knowing what I was doing. But I did this for some time, and as soon as my family entered the door, I went upstairs. And I heard my mother coming out with the turkey, or my father coming out with the turkey. They were putting things on the table, and when I went upstairs, I painted my face red. Painted my face red. This was for the blood of the native people and of the Africans. And I grabbed that diorama, and as soon as the turkey went on the table, I just slammed it down next to the turkey. Blam! This is what you're celebrating. The annihilation, the murder of native men, women, and children, and the enslavement of your ancestors. My father, knowing that he was dealing with his radical son, instead of arguing with me or punishing me, because he knew that that's probably what I actually wanted, he just said, go upstairs, go upstairs, go upstairs. We'll bring you food. Go upstairs, go upstairs. That's who I used to be. And in many ways, that's still who I am. But I began to think a little differently when I got a little older. I actually didn't want to beat my family up anymore. These are the people who loved me. These are the people who nurtured me. Why am I beating them up? Why? What's the point of that? So later I would actually go to the big celebrations with big pictures, or I remember in high school going to the Macy's Day Parade, trying to talk about Thanksgiving. By the way, the Macy's Day Parade in New York is so big, I was nowhere. It was like 3 million people. This one guy saying, "Why are y'all doing this?" Anyway, just know that that's who I was. And it's because of this history. So when we think about Thanksgiving, you should know that most people are referencing a celebration that occurred probably in 1621. Here's a picture by Jean Ferris. It's supposed to be depicting the Mayflower Pilgrims and the native people sharing a meal. And this is the image that many of us have. I'm sure that some of you who have children will have your children drawing these nice images of the native people and the pilgrims sharing a meal and enjoying each other and giving thanks for the year. This is the kind of image that has long been shared about this time. But is this an accurate historical depiction? Well, let's talk about what actually happened en route to understanding perhaps what we should do. Let me start by saying that this 1621 celebration was at the Plymouth Plantation in Massachusetts. And you should know that one of the major individuals involved was a native man who was part of the Pawtuxet people called Tisquantum. Sometimes Tisquantum has been called Squanto. Understand that it was this European who had interaction with him that gave him a nickname Squanto. So I'm not going to call him Squanto. His name was Tisquantum. And so Tisquantum actually was a Pawtuxet, and the Pawtuxet people were part of the Wampanoag Confederation of Peoples. He was the one that assisted these Mayflower pilgrims by teaching them not to catch turkeys. There are many historians that say that it's likely that they didn't even have turkey at this meal. That instead what he was teaching them is how to catch eel and grow corn. They were truly struggling with this new settlement that they had created, and they had very few food stores. In fact, it's known that Tisquantum was actually sent by the person in charge of this plantation to actually go and trade with other peoples in the area so they could bring back as much food as possible, because they were starving. So without Tisquantum, there is no way that these Europeans who had come to this land would have been able to survive. That is the truth. So you might say, well, how did Tisquantum become someone that could actually navigate the relationships between the native people in the area, mostly the Wampanoag Confederation, and these Mayflower pilgrims? Well, 6 years earlier, a European by the name of Thomas Hunt actually captured him and about 24 other Native Americans, and he enslaved them. They took them off to Spain. And so Tisquantum lived in Spain for a little bit as an enslaved person. Now, it's believed that as soon as he got there, some of the religious people, the friars in the area, purchased him and decided that they weren't going to, supposedly, this story is told, they weren't going to actually poorly, but instead they were going to teach him, baptize him, and teach him Christianity. In many ways, this is as you can imagine. Can you imagine being stolen from your homeland with a few others, and then being forced to learn the way of people in a place that you did not choose to go? They didn't need a lash on his back for this to be inhumane. But this is what happened to Tisquantum. So he is in Spain for some time. It's believed that he also goes to England. And during this time, he learns European languages, particularly also English. out of the more than 24 native people that were kidnapped, Tisquantum is the only one that survived. Eventually, he heads back to his area with the Europeans who are making the journey. When he gets there, he finds something horrendous has occurred. The French their journey to the area, and these French sailors brought disease to the Potoxic people. By the time he got there, his people had already succumbed to these illnesses. So all of his people had died. He was now the last Potoxic person. This is quite sad. And so this is how Tisquantum becomes an intermediary. Now, this is a difficult thing, you could imagine, because he speaks the languages of the native people. Clearly, these Europeans there actually also have taught him their ways and their language, and his people are gone. So, in some ways, he is in between, caught in between his people and the Europeans. And having been for so long, the native people in the area seem not to trust him very much. What's he do? This is a very difficult situation for him. But not for his presence, Plymouth Plantation in the early 1600s, these Europeans would not have survived. Taught them how to capture eel and how to grow corn. So when this celebration occurs, understand that this celebration lasts for about 3 days, and it includes about 50 European pilgrims and about 90 native people. So, without saying much more, you should know, in celebration as seen as the manner in which the European gains traction in what would become the United States, the history of what they do to the native people there is absolutely horrendous. And you might be thinking, was it not horrendous enough for them to kidnap Tisquantum and against his will and to make him quote-unquote Roman Catholic? Was that not bad enough? Was it not bad enough that the French came and actually gave disease to his people, wiping out all of the people he knew? Was that not bad enough? Well, this is just the beginning. In fact, if we look at the years that actually continue from the first celebration, we actually see millions of native people massacred over the generations. We know that Europeans poison their water regularly. We know that, and you've heard this before, that they gave the Native Americans smallpox. And there have been some people who try to say that didn't happen, but I want you to read the work of William Trent. He writes a letter that's called The Siege of Fort Pitt in 1763. And he says, out of our regard to them, we gave them 2 blankets and a handkerchief out of the smallpox hospital. I hope it will have the desired effect. So you should know that these Europeans use biological terrorism to annihilate groups of native people. They intentionally murdered men, women, and children. The same men, women, and children who had greeted them and fed them and allowed them to survive the difficult winters when they had no food sources. Isn't this gratitude? Isn't this giving thanks? Think about the fact that this celebration is in many ways a seminal event that leads to the murder of millions. How could we celebrate it and not recognize what happened? That's their story, y'all. Are y'all celebrating their story? Are you actually going to see it for what it is? This is the difficulty that and even today, and I should also say the Trail of Tears, where 4,000 died when they were marched literally hundreds or thousands of miles southwestern United States to the west of the Mississippi River, because these Unions wanted their land, and they would be marched forcefully, men, women, and children, just dying in the droves. This is what happened to the Native people. In fact, just think about the fact that it's very difficult for you to see people who are Native today in many parts of the country. Can you imagine that? That's because many of them actually were murdered. That's the history. The dual sins of the United States. The nation of the Native American and the forced labor, the forced kidnapping of the African. This is the dual sin that occurs at the outset of the United States and much of the Western world. And because these have not actually dealt with how they came into existence, they will never truly be right. They will always, no matter how much opulence they are able to generate, there will always be turmoil in these nations, because these nations have not actually dealt with what they did. And you cannot have justice. That's the challenge. And even that the Native Americans have the highest unemployment rate of any group in the United States, over 50%. And that they have the highest suicide rate of any group. In addition to that, we know that Native Americans continue to scourge of alcohol, of drug abuse, and in fact, I haven't mentioned this yet, but I'm going to mention it here. The only group that is doing worse than African Americans or people of African descent with regard to COVID-19 are the Native Americans. They're the only ones who are actually faring worse. It is black and brown people who are dying of this condition. And I know that there may be some among you, I hope none on this broadcast, who actually question whether it is. I'm going to tell you that as someone who had it, someone who was struggling to breathe while sitting up awake at night, I saw the body bags coming from across the street. I would see those workers go completely clad in their PPE and come out a few minutes later with body bags. Not with individuals on stretchers, but with bodies and body bags on stretchers. I saw at least 5 of them in the week actually sit and look out the window. This is serious. Take it seriously. This is the situation that we're in. Understand that in 1789, it is George Washington himself, that founding father, enslaver, who actually creates a national day of Thanksgiving, and Abraham Lincoln, yes, that Abraham Lincoln, who designates the 4th Thursday in 1863 for national observance. This is how we get the celebration of Thanksgiving. And so with all of this, I ask you, should we actually relegate Thanksgiving to the dustbin of history? Should we still practice this with all of its massive balloons at this? The parade is lots of fun for lots of people, but should we be having fun with the history of this celebration? I'm going to say that this is difficult because you know what happens when you get time off, right? Is it the best thing to do when you get time off to spend it with family? Should we actually be still celebrating this? Well, I'm going to say to you that if you're going to do anything during this period, and I want you to think about it carefully also because we're in the midst of a rampant pandemic, you should actually think that perhaps maybe stay home. But if you're going to do anything, perhaps you should be thinking about those people who died. Here's the plaque here erected by the town of Plymouth on behalf of the United American Indians of New England. And it says, since 1970, Native Americans have gathered at noon on Coles Hill in Plymouth to commemorate a national day of mourning on the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday. Many Native Americans do not celebrate the arrival of the Pilgrims and other European settlers. To them, Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of their people, the theft of their lands, and the relentless assault on their culture. Participants in the National Day of Mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggles of Native peoples to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and spiritual connection, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. This is how they are celebrating. This is how they are remembering this day. So if you're going to do anything, at least pour a libation and think about all of those souls that were lost, all those souls that were wiped out as the Europeans came. But here's a question. Is there anything wrong with being thankful? What is the problem if we are actually trying to have us think about all those things that we have received and actually look upon them with reverence, look upon them with divine gratitude? Well, let's take it back even further than 1621. Not to 1521, not to 1421, but to thousands of years before the Europeans made their way to these shores. Ancestors were already thinking about how to celebrate the harvest, how to celebrate those things that the Neteru had given them in order to survive. Here goes an image from the tomb of Sennacherib E. Nefertari. You can actually see that their depiction of their afterlife is them having great harvest. And you can see them reaping the wheat. And actually, I don't even know what, this might be corn on the bottom here, actually reaping corn and plowing the land. You can see trees that are filled with wonderful dates. So I want you to understand that our Kemetic ancestors always thought about those things that the Neteru gave after hard work, after living in balance. And in many ways, it was a symbol. It was emblematic of living a good life. That is what our Kemetic ancestors did. And so the idea of giving thanks is not something that is foreign to the African. There are many harvest festivals. And we also had images. Take a look at this difficult images. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts? What are you seeing here? I think you are probably seeing individuals whose ribs are showing, who are struggling to survive. This was the depiction of great famine in Kemet. And please don't tell me this is famine that's connected to the biblical narrative. This is thousands of years before anyone knew any of those stories. Your Kemetic ancestors were describing how difficult it could be sometimes to survive. And this particular image actually comes from around the period, around the years of the great Insubit, the great King Unas. And so it describes people struggling without food. And we know that there are many stories of how our Kemetic ancestors thrived and survived in inequity, in challenge. In fact, here's another thing that you should be aware of. This is called the famine stele. The famine stele. And next to it, you are seeing an image of that divine ancestor, that wonderful polymath, multi-genius known as Imhotep. Say his name that he may live on in peace. Imhotep. And on the famine stele, which is in what we would today consider southern Kemet, you see an image of the king going to pay homage to Khnum, to Serket, and I believe also to, I believe that's Neat there. Nukit. That's what you're seeing. Why is this happening? Well, the story tells of a time when Kemet was in great famine under the king known as Djoser Neterikhet. Please say his name, Djoser Neterikhet. This is in the old kingdom of Kemet. And Djoser is recognizing that there is great famine, and he looks at his first in command, Imhotep, and he says, we need to find out why this is happening, why our people have been beset by this famine. And so Imhotep follows the course of the Hapi, that river that has been misnomered as the Nile. And as he goes all the way south, he gets to where the problem is. And he recognizes that one of the reasons why there's a famine is because the Hapi has not been treated properly. And so returning to tell Djoser Neterikhet, Djoser, what happened, he goes to make offering to those deities, to say thank you for the bounty that the Hapi gives us. And he also says that the area around that region will actually be given to the Neteru. In other words, you're not just hearing a philosophical, spiritual description, you're also hearing a naturalistic description. I believe that what he was doing is creating a wet field, creating a protected area around their water source so that the water could remain in its pristine condition. And it is when that he offers divine offerings, divine gifts to the divine, these divine entities, that the Hapi then bears its fruit. This is on the famine stele. And today it's on the island that is often called Elephantine in Nubian Kemet. So our Kemetic ancestors have always recognized that in order to truly receive, you must give. Is that not what we do when we stand in a position of adoration? And so Djoser and Imhotep give to the divine so that they can receive. Thankfulness is something that is important in the Kemetic tradition. And I want to talk about a concept that is often something you will hear in spiritual communities. It's the concept of radical gratitude. When we are in a position, in a moment of actually giving thanks for all the things that we have received, our heart, when we actually recognize how wonderful our lives have been at the behest of the Neteru, all the things that we've been given, even though we have had challenges, even though we've had infirmity, even though we have had illness, even though we have had moments where we wanted, recognize all that we have been given. When you're in a position where you're able to give thanks, it lightens your heart. This is a very important aspect of the divine journey, the call to higher consciousness. And I ask, why is it that we cannot always stay in that period? Find 9 barriers. I'm going to say that these are the things that prevent us from living in a position of divine gratitude, of radical gratitude. This is why we can't always walk around, I am grateful, I am thankful. These are the things that prevent us from doing that. Number 1, we feel entitled. We think that we deserve everything, and why is it that we have not gotten what we expected? It might even be that we feel unentitled. So we don't recognize that we are vessels for the divine. So when something is given to us, we actually push it away. So it could be that duality. Either you feel entitled or you feel unentitled. This is the first barrier. Number 2, we don't realize what we've actually received. Sometimes we spend our time praying like we are writing a list to Santa. Please give me this, please give me that, please give me this. That is not what living in divine balance is. And so when we receive the wonderful bounty of the Neteru, we don't even recognize what we've received because we just caught up on stuff. caught up on things, caught up on the things that we can show to people, getting ready to floss, getting ready to speak over much. That is why we often don't feel that we are in a position of radical gratitude, because often we actually don't realize that while we're asking for all these things that we do not need, we have actually received the things that we truly need. That's the second barrier. Number 3, one of the reasons why we don't live in a position of radical gratitude is because we don't properly celebrate our friends, family, and allies. Are you actually saying thanks and giving to the people who have given to you? There are so many people that have allowed you to be here, allowed you to reach this point. Are you properly honoring them? This is important. We have to reach the place where we properly celebrate and thank those people who have helped us on our journey. Some of them are not even amongst the living anymore. Are you paying homage and giving them thanks in the ancestral realm? That which you feed is that which lives. Are you feeding them? Are you giving them thanks? Are you calling their names? If you don't do this enough, you're not actually able to live in a place of radical gratitude. Number 4, we don't recognize that the challenges that we have along our journey are actually only things that prepare us to be victorious. That can also be one of the major barriers. That when you have trials, when you have tribulations, when you meet the road that's torn up, when you actually fall into potholes, when you actually roll over the tacks, you don't recognize that all of those are things that are preparing you for your victory. You don't recognize that the breakdowns are just a prelude to the breakthroughs. In fact, if we looked at the world that way, we would not only be better prepared to be grateful for the things that we have been given by the Netanru and the ancestors, but we would also look at those challenges as things that we actually enjoy contending with. We'd be able to laugh at the challenges rather than be placed in a position of unbinding and paralyzing sorrow. Number 5, we also sometimes forget that we have to give in order to receive. Sometimes when I speak to individuals looking to practice African spirituality, they haven't gotten to the point yet where they recognize spirituality is not like the spiritual forms that they are coming from. Email saying, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And that. And those people that do not get selection because they have forgotten that in order to receive, they must give. We do a lot during our initiation, and we try to do so much for the people who are not Shrine of Ma'at, to give them the things, the tools they need divine Ma'atical life. But we also tell them that they have to do those members of Rakas Hashem, the initiates of the Shrine of Ma'at, please say a Tuan Terraform right. You know very well that we say that this is also about the work of Ma'at. And in order to receive, one must give. Maybe you can't be in a position of radical gratitude because you got it reversed. You're doing this. You think you can give, you can take. That's what you think. Like a infant. One who is not matured to recognize that we have been placed here to do great work. This is of great importance. The 6th, we haven't focused on how fortunate we really are. Sometimes we need to just take a minute and just look at what we've actually gotten. Look at our lives. Don't just focus on the stuff that's challenging you, but what are all the things that we've actually gotten? I always say that we need to celebrate the small victory, because if we don't celebrate the small victory, all we're doing is focusing on the challenges. Why should you receive the things that you need and deserve if you don't even say thank you for the small victories along the way? Why should you? Number 7, we've become sometimes too pessimistic to remain in a position of radical gratitude. We think that everything's going to be messed up. And because you think that everything's going to be messed up, this is the perfect place not to do a damn thing. You see those people on social media. They are always saying something negative about something. You could show them a picture of a smiling and they're going to go, where are their teeth? They ain't got no teeth. How come they can't even hold their head up right? That ain't fun. There are those people who live to be pessimistic. We must get out of that position. We must be able to see those things that we have been given that are magnificent, that are the bounty of the Neteru. Number 8, we don't recognize our power. There's a typo. We don't recognize our power. Because if you recognize you are a divine being, then you wouldn't be sitting there wallowing, woe is me, woe is me. You ever look at, Anika's going to enjoy this. You ever look at Winnie the Pooh? Ask yourself, are you Eeyore or are you Tigger? Some of y'all have no idea what I'm talking about. Go look at it and ask yourself, am I Eeyore or am I Tigger? Do stuff, or am I sitting there going, damn, stuff is messed up? You might wonder why people don't want to spend any time around you. Because you're negative. Because you're depressing. Because you suck all of the joy and the harmony out of the room when you enter it. Is that who you are? You need to introduce yourself to radical gratitude. I told you Nico's going to enjoy that because she was a big Winnie the Pooh fan. Number 9. The final reason why I argue that we are not focusing on radical gratitude is because we aren't stopping to focus on the journey. Sometimes we are always rushing to get someplace. So as we rush to the train or to the bus or to the car, we don't even recognize the beautiful day that's there. Here's an example of how that occurs for me. When I'm traveling, I'm almost always driving. And when you're driving, what do you have to do in order to drive successfully and safely? You got to keep your eyes forward. You ever get in a situation where you're now in the passenger seat? Or for me, because I live on the west side of Manhattan, I race down the West Side Highway or up or down on the FDR, and sometimes I'll just be on my bike. I remember taking my bike along the West Side Highway. It's literally just a few feet from where I was driving and looking at the water and saying, this is beautiful. I have been on this path thousands of times and not enjoyed it. Ride my bike down there, sometimes I would just ride and notice that somebody would have their bike on the side and they'd just be laying by the water doing this. And I'd say to myself, why haven't I ever seen this before? Because sometimes we aren't stopping enough. We are focused on what we think is a destination. We think that the destination is perfection. We don't recognize that perfection is not a destination. It is a process. It is a journey. Stop and recognize all of those things along your path, along your journey, and you will be able to be in a position of radical gratitude. Now, ain't this better than eating some cranberry sauce on Thursday? We need to get to the point where we're truly thankful. Now, you should know that in our Kemetic tradition, we actually had a celebration, a ceremony, a holiday that focused on this. And it seems that it was mostly a holiday that was celebrated by the poor, by the working people. Today it is often called the 5 gifts of Het Heru. The 5 gifts of Het Heru. You know Het Heru, right? Sometimes you might look at these statues and say, well, isn't that Ast? Well, sometimes these Neteru are depicted as different individuals, and our Kemetic ancestors had no challenge doing that. Why? Because they knew they were talking about energy and not about literal beings. Because if you're talking about a literal being, no matter how much you try, Jabari will not be Denzel Washington. Because he's more attractive. But my wife is not supposed to laugh at that. She's not supposed to laugh, y'all. You'll hear her laughing. If you want to hear her laugh louder, I'm going to squeal on her now. I could have said Samuel Jackson. That's her old man crush. You should see that. Jabari, no matter how much Jabari tries, he will not be Samuel Jackson. You better know that. Because I'm a literal person and Samuel Jackson is a literal person. The Neteru are not literal people. The Neteru are divine energies that are both in us and outside of us. And so that is why this statue, some people would call Ast, or by the Greek misnomer name Isis, or you could recognize that sometimes this is depicting Het Heru. How do you know? You gotta read the glyphs. That's how you know. It's that simple. You have to read the glyphs. So, in this celebration known as the 5 gifts of Het Heru, people were asked a very important question, which I will ask you in a few moments. Before that, I want you to read something that comes from the Stele of Ipui. Say Ipui's name that he may live. Ipui says this: giving praise to Het Heru, who lives in Waset. Kiss the earth for reverence to her in all forms. Notice how we're saying that there's reference to her in all forms. Our Kemetic ancestors recognized that they were not talking about people. What do you mean all forms? Does Jabari come in more than one form? We're talking about the Neteru. It was on the day that I saw her beauty. My mind was spending the day in celebration thereof, that I beheld the Lady of the Two Lands in a dream, and she placed joy in my heart. Then I was revitalized with her food. He who is wise will honor her at the seasonal festival. There was actually a festival for Het Heru. That which gives teaching to the people might be regarded to be pure food. This is powerful. The teaching, the understanding, the sebayit, the knowledge of the Neteru is pure food. It's better than that Big Mac you cramming down your mouth. Look at the wisdom of the elders. This is the food that you must receive in order to receive divine sustenance. This is what Ipui is saying. He recognizes in communion with Het Heru. He continues. Near the servant in the place of truth, Ipui, the justified. By the way, the justified means that his scales are balanced, that his heart is actually lighter than the feather. He says, in order to solve the problems of rivalry, jealousy, and coveting her, the wonders of Het Heru, which she did in ancient times, should be related to the ones who do not know and to the ones who do know. A generation should tell a next generation how beautiful she truly is. Ipui is describing radical gratitude. He is describing acquiring the majesty of Ma'at, the wholeness of Het Heru. That is what he is describing. He is saying that if you have the song of Het Heru in your heart, it destroys rivalry, it defeats jealousy, it absolutely obliterates coveting. This is gratitude. Do you hear that these are things about people who just want, and want what other people have, and argue about what they have versus what other people have? This is gratitude. If you understand this, you will not want for anything. That is what he is saying. Don't let people in the other Eastern traditions try to pretend that radical gratitude is theirs. You had the feast of the 5 gifts of Het Heru. And so if you must celebrate with your family this week, by the way, let me say again, please be careful because we are in the middle of a darn pandemic. Please don't be driving out and talking to people, and please don't think that if you got tested that means that you're perfect and no one will get sick. Please don't think if you got a mask on no one will get sick. Please don't think that if you do all those things no one will get sick. Just be careful. I'm telling you, by the time we see February, we're going to see 400,000 people dead in less than a year. Be careful. It's black and brown people dying. But you should know that not even a pandemic should prevent you from recognizing radical gratitude, from actually saying, I have received and I am not only worthy, but I am grateful for that which I received. Ask yourself this question. Ask yourself this question. What 5 things would I miss if this was the last day of my life? By the way, I should have actually put the word things in quotes. Because when I say things, I might also mean people, right? I'm not just talking about physical stuff. What 5 things would I miss if this is the last day of my life? I want you this week to write down a list of those 5 things. Write a list of those 5 things. Take yourself a moment and think about what those 5 things are. And then when you find those 5 things, now what are you going to do? From there, for each of those things, I want you to look at 5 people, 5 items you got in order to have each of those things. And then when you have each of those 5 things from the 5 things, from each of the 5 things, I want you to now think of 5 ways that you're going to celebrate those 5 things that allowed you to have the 5 things. 5, 5, 5. That will allow you to now live in a place of radical gratitude. That's your homework. Did you think I was going to tell you just to eat some mac and cheese and have some sweet potato pie? Your ancestors are giving thanks long before there was anyone else on the planet. This is our way. By the way, for those people, those individuals that you have to give thanks to, some of you might say, well, some of those people aren't here anymore. Does that matter? No. Get up in your altar, Kometiyu, and give thanks. Speak their names, pour them cool water, make them a tasty meal, that they will be given sustenance, that they will be given those things that they deserve because they allowed you to be. That is what this is about. So think about your 5 things. And then think of those 5 items that you were given for each of those 5 things that allowed you to have those 5 things. And then think about the 5 ways you're going to celebrate each of those 5 things that came from the 5 things, and then do those things. Live in radical gratitude. Say Dwan Ter, Dwan Ter, Dwan Ter, Dwan Ter for the things that you have received. That is how you will live a life in the magical path of Ma'at. That's what our ancestors hoped that we would do. Not just get fat on some bird that we bought at the store, or almost burn our house down when we try to fry a turkey. They want you to give thanks. Don't allow the Europeans' commercialism the Europeans' dual morality to prevent you from doing that which you know you should do. Because we know that what we really need to do is remember that which we've always known. Our ancestors expect you to do their work. You have your homework. Let's get it done. By the way, as you do the work, please tell me your 5, 5, and 5. Post them on your Facebook page and share them to the Shrine of Ma'at page. Let us know that you're doing the work. The being a practitioner of Kemetic tradition can't just be wearing an ankh and saying Hetepu or Hotep. If that's what you're doing, you ain't really part of the Kemetic tradition. How are you securing your footsteps along the path of Ma'at? Giving thanks is one of those radical ways that you can be in radical gratitude. Tuan Ter, I say the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Anika, lead us in our final affirmation.
So before we do our final prayer, just a few announcements. Thank you to those who have already submitted their applications for initiation. Remember, the applications are available online, and initiation will begin in February. So please submit your application. On the page, it tells you where to mail it. We also ask that you do not make any payments until you have been interviewed and selected. So please just put in the application, and once we start reviewing them, you may be contacted for an interview, and we'll move forward from there. So please remember to go ahead and visit our website, www.shrineofma'at.org.
And also, those of you who have already made payments, some of you have, if you are not selected, because you have to know that we want to make sure that you're on the path to do the work of Ma'at, and that we are the right home for you. If you're not selected, your money will be refunded.
Yes, definitely. We also want to thank all of you who have made donations today. We really appreciate that. For those of you who are still interested in making donations, you can do so through Cash App, and our handle is $Shrine of Ma'at, or you can through our website, again, www.shrine.org, and use PayPal to make payments. Done for us, and to you and your families, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend and holiday season, however you choose, or if you choose to celebrate. Okay, so we would like to end with our final prayer. Stand in the pose of adoration. As always, I will do it in the words of the divine words of our ancestors, and then repeat it in English. So please repeat after me. Amasu and Pa and Ter.
Amasu and Pa and Ter.
Sauksu.
Sauksu.
Emetra.
Ementra.
And Pa and Ter.
And Pa and Ter.
Autu.
Autu.
Aura.
Aura.
Maketi Pa.
Maketi Pa.
Herura.
Herura.
Give yourself to the one most high.
Give yourself to the one most high.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
And do it tomorrow.
And do it tomorrow.
Just as you did it today.
Just as you did it today.
Twa winter.
Winter.
Thank you to the divine.
Thank you to the divine.
And thank you to all of you.
Thank you so much. And once again, do your work. Get up in your 5 gifts of Het Hebrew. And remember, post them on your Facebook page and our Shrine of Ma'at page. We want to know how you're doing work. And when we do work together, big things will actually occur. With that, we want to thank you for being part of Kemetic Ascension. We say Shem Emet, go for peace, and Ankh in Ma'at. Hopefully you will live a life in divine